In the golden heart of the savannah, where the grass swayed like whispers and the sky stretched endlessly above, ruled a lion whose name alone struck fear into every creature's bones. Asad. His mane was thick and dark as the night sky. His eyes burned amber like the sun before it dies. And his roar shook the earth and stilled the air. Asad was no ordinary lion. He was the alpha, the leader of the largest pride in the region, a master of the hunt, and a symbol of power. But pride, both the lion's and the emotion, can be fragile. One sweltering afternoon, while the lions rested beneath the shade of the acacia trees, Asad climbed the hill overlooking the plains. From here, he could see everything: the river curling through the land, the dust kicked up by wildebeest, the lazy giraffes at the horizon. He felt untouchable, but nature has a way of humbling even kings. That night, a fire swept through the far plains, started by lightning and fed by dry winds. It spread like a living beast. Asad heard at first the crackling flames, the screams of birds fleeing the treetops. He ran, he roared, calling his pride, but in the smoke and panic, everything blurred. Shapes twisted in flame, cubs scattered, lionesses bolted in different directions. Roars echoed, then vanished. When the fire finally died, Asad stood alone among ash and silence. His pride, his family, his world was gone. The fire had been merciless, leaving behind a graveyard of memories. Asad, wounded and broken, stumbled to a nearby watering hole. The water was a mirror to his misery, reflecting the charred remnants of his pride's territory. For days, he wandered, driven by hunger and haunted by the ghost of his pride. The vast savannah, once his domain, now mocked him with its emptiness. The watering holes, once teeming with life, were now just holes in the ground. The acacia trees, once sheltering his cubs, now stood bare and unfeeling. Even the sky, once his lookout, now seemed distant and cold. Then he saw her, a lioness, her fur the color of burnt umber, her eyes reflecting the smoldering landscape. She, too, was alone, a survivor like him. Her name was Zuri, which meant beautiful, and she was. But beauty, like all things, can be deceptive. Zuri was as wild as the fire that had broken their prides, as untamable as the winds that fanned those flames, and yet there was a flicker of something else in her eyes, something that mirrored the pain in his own amber depths. Slowly, cautiously, they circled each other, two wounded souls in a world turned to ash. There were no cubs to protect, no pride to defend, only the memory of what they had lost and the raw instinct to survive. And so they began, not a hunt, for what would be the point of that, but a kind of courtship, strange and stilted, born out of loss and licking at the wounds of their pride. It was a slow dance of sniffing and circling, of tentative touches and shared looks towards the dying embers of their world. Then, as quickly as it began, it ended. Zuri turned and walked away, disappearing over the horizon, as if she were a mirage, a figment of Asad's grief-stricken mind. He watched her go, knowing that he may never see her again. But in that brief moment of connection, he felt something stir within him, a spark of hope in the ashes of despair. The fire had taken everything from them, but it couldn't take their spirit, their will to survive. Asad lifted his head and roared, not a roar of anger or sadness, but a roar of defiance, a declaration that even in the face of such devastating loss, life, in its most primal form, would endure. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. A final, magnificent spectacle before the encroaching darkness. Asad stood silhouetted against the dying light, a lone warrior surveying his kingdom of ashes. The night sounds began their mournful symphony, the crickets, the hyenas, the distant owls, and Asad, the mighty lion whose roar once shook the savannah, closed his eyes and slept under the cold, indifferent stars. At first, he thought they would return. He waited. 1 day, 2, a week. He patrolled the territory. He marked trees. He roared louder than ever. But there was no answer. No scent trail. No paw prints. Nothing. The king of the savannah was alone. And for the first time in his life, Asad felt fear. It crept into him slowly, not like a predator, but like a ghost. He flinched at the rustle of leaves. He growled at his own reflection in the water. He dreamed of shadows. His confidence, it cracked, then crumbled. He had no one to guard while sleeping, no ears to pick up danger, no warmth of bodies beside his in the night. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was maddening. He stopped hunting. He grew thin. Vultures followed him not out of fear, but hunger. 1 day, Asad collapsed. He couldn't get up. His legs felt like lead. His stomach, a hollow echo. In his throat, he stumbled out of the dry riverbed. The vultures circling above, their shadows falling across his path. He wanted to run, but his body refused to move. His eyes, they burned with a terrible dryness. His tongue, a swollen purple in his mouth, his vision blurred. The taste of blood filled his mouth. He shook his head, trying to clear it, to think, to remember. Where was the water? Where was the shade? Where was the kill? He couldn't remember. The sun beat down on him. His skin, it burned like a branding iron. The world spun. He fell, and in that moment, surrounded by the mocking circle of vultures, Asad, the once mighty lion, the king of the savannah, died. The silence, it consumed him. The silence killed him. Once upon a time, deep in the heart of a sun-baked savannah, there lived a mighty lion known as Asad, whose name struck fear into the hearts of all who heard it. For Asad was just a fierce hunter with claws like daggers and a bite that could crush bones. He was also the kind of leader who inspired awe and obedience in his pride. His word was law. His presence commanded respect, and his strength and courage were legendary. Then, one day, he heard it, a distant roar, faint but real. He stood frozen, every muscle tight. Another roar, dot higher, dot softer, dot female. Could it be? With a surge of life, Asad bolted toward the sound. His massive paws pounded the parched earth, kicking up dust devils in his wake. The roar echoed again, and this time it carried a hint of desperation. As Asad's heart raced, was it a young lioness calling out in distress? He didn't know, but he had to find out. Days passed. He crossed scorched lands, climbed sheer cliffs, and battled rival males who challenged his weakened state. He bled, he limped, but he kept moving, driven by an instinct as old as time, the urge to protect his own. Just when his resolve started to crack and despair threatened to consume him, he saw it, a flicker of movement in the distance. Hope surged through him, quickening his pace. As he got closer, the flicker became a full-fledged roar, and there she was, standing proud on a rocky outcrop, her golden fur glowing in the afternoon sun. Sappho, one of his lionesses. Relief washed over him, so intense it brought tears to his eyes. She had survived the fire that had ravaged their territory and somehow made it all the way to the Forgotten Valley. But it was what she had in her paws that truly stole his breath away. 2 tiny balls of fluff, her cubs, their eyes wide with wonder as they took in their surroundings. When Sappho saw him, her eyes, pools of amber, widened with surprise, then filled with tears. The reunion was brief. There were too many dangers in the open. So as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Asad and his mate retreated to the safety of a cave. Their cubs nestled between them for comfort. It was a moment of pure bliss, a stolen victory against the harshness of the world. But their joy was short-lived. Whispers on the wind spoke of other survivors, members of Asad's pride who had managed to escape the inferno. Driven by the instinct to reunite his pride, Asad set out once more, leaving the cave only to find more survivors, scared, scarred, but alive. One by one, he led them back to the cave, back to each other. The numbers swelled, and slowly, Asad's pride began to heal. He was no longer the same lion who had charged into the unknown. That version of him had died in the fire, taken by the flames along with their home and their pride. The Asad that emerged from the ashes was tempered, hardened, his spirit unbroken. The fire had stripped him bare, leaving only the essence of who he was. A lion stripped bare, but standing tall, his scars a testament to his journey, his eyes reflecting the wisdom gained from his ordeal. Now, when Asad roared, the land still trembled, but this time it listened, for it was the sound of resilience, of survival, and of a heart that refused to be broken. And so, the legend of Asad, the lion who survived the fire and brought his pride back from the brink of extinction, was passed down through the ages, a beacon of hope in a harsh and unforgiving world. His story became a parable, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope and resilience can pave the way to healing and rebirth.